Hey guys, what I wanted to do tonight is pick up where I left off in the live stream I did on the subject of demons and alchemy. This whole conversation came about whenever, in the original Magnum Opus group, we started talking about the book of Abramelin, which is usually, well, it is uh, known, the thing it's known most for is the attaining knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. But this conversation came up when someone was asking about, the part in the book where it talks about after attaining knowledge and conversation, he then goes on to bind demons. So we got into the whole subject concept of demons. And first off, what we're going to do tonight is go a little bit deeper into exactly what they are and why we're doing this. But I also wanted to touch on the fact that just like pretty much every other system, whether it's, religion like Christianity and Islam and Judaism, all of these things, the book of Abramelin is also written in a kind of code that if you can't understand this code, you're not going to be able to understand what's going on here. And, keep in mind that's things like, for example, whenever it says he takes alms to 72 poor people, this is the same thing in Christianity, and I believe it's the Gospel of Luke where it says Jesus has 72 disciples, or in the Old Testament it says Moses has 72 elders to help him. In the Egyptian lore, they said that Set has 72 co-conspirators whenever he goes to murder Osiris. Even in Eastern traditions, they say the Shaolin Temple sits on a mountain with 72 peaks. What that number represents, 72, each of those 72 represents 5 degrees of the zodiacal wheel. Most people aren't going to know that whenever they're reading the book of Abramelin. So keep in mind, it doesn't say he exorcises demons. It says he binds them. So we're going to get more into what this stuff means. So I called this particular piece, and I'm going to post this so that you can read it, Demons in Alchemy, Shadows of the Axis Mundi. When most people hear the word alchemy, they think of gold, crucibles, and the philosopher's stone. When they hear ceremonial magic, they picture archangels and divine names, circles of light drawn to keep the practitioner safe. And this is accurate. These traditions are filled with radiant figures. Every elemental force has a ruling archangel. Each planet has a guardian intelligence. The 12 zodiac signs unfold under the watch of spiritual powers. But what's often hidden or deliberately avoided is the other side. For every angel, there is a demon. And I put that in air quotes because if you haven't seen it yet, I would recommend going back and watching the first live stream where we talked about this. It's titled Demons in Alchemy. Because when we use that word, we're not usually talking about the image that's going to come up in most people's minds. For every archangel who guards a gate of light, there is a corresponding force of shadow. Just as Michael rules fire, so too does Lucifer in his role as crown prince of hell. Just as Gabriel governs water, so too does Leviathan. The 72 angels of the Shem operation are mirrored step by step by the 72 spirits of the Goetia. The symmetry is perfect because creation itself is drawn in polarities. To understand angels while ignoring demons is like studying the day without ever considering the night. The great work cannot be accomplished with only one side of the spectrum acknowledged. Electricity requires both positive and negative currents to flow. Human breath requires both an inhale and an exhale. Spiritual work demands recognition of both the angelic and the demonic. Without that, you hobble yourself, trying to walk with half a body. So the structure of shadow. Alchemy has always been a map of opposites, sulfur and mercury, fixed and volatile, above and below, solve and coagula. The angelic and the demonic are another layer of this polarity. The four crown princes of hell correspond directly to the four archangels of the elements. Lucifer, prince of fire, mirrors Michael. Leviathan, prince of water, mirrors Gabriel. Belial corresponds to earth and Uriel. Satan, often associated with air, mirrors Raphael. These names are not random. They are symbolic archetypes distilled from thousands of years of myth and ritual. Each represents not just some monstrous entity out there, but a kind of raw current of energy. Then there are the 72 demons of the Goetia. They are arranged in exact symmetry with the 72 angels of the Shem HaMephorash, the extended name of God. For every angelic force of protection and healing, there is a corresponding demonic force of temptation, chaos, or disruption. These are not mistakes in the structure of the universe. They are intentional mirrors. Just as the Shem angels refine the soul, the Goetic spirits test it. Together, they form the complete spectrum of human possibility. So we always in ceremonial magic start with angels. That's what I've been talking about on here for years. Very rarely do I ever talk about stuff like the Goetia. But why do we start with angels first? That's what I'm going to go into now. In ceremonial magic, when the practitioner takes up the work of becoming the axis mundi, the still point where heaven and earth intersect, the order of invocation matters. The angels are always called first. And again, when I'm talking about the Axis Mundi here, if you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend you go back and watch the first live stream that I did on demons in alchemy. And it'll give you a greater picture of what I'm talking about here. This is not superstition. It's structural necessity. The angelic forces stabilize the inner temple. They orient the psyche toward balance, discipline, and clarity. They set the compass. Without that orientation, the forces of shadow can scatter the practitioner like chaff in the wind. Think of it like building a foundation before a storm. You anchor the walls, reinforce the structure, and only then open the doors. To invoke the demons without first invoking the angels is to stand in the path of a hurricane with no shelter. The winds will not refine you, they will destroy you. The angels are not invoked because they are better than the demons. They're invoked first because they establish order. Only once that order is in place can you turn to face the shadow without being consumed by it. So now we're going to go a little bit into what these things, these demons, what they actually are. Here's the truth that most people resist. The demons are not external monsters waiting to drag us to hell. They are projections of our own psyche, fragments of ourselves we have disowned, drives we have exiled, instincts we have repressed. When a magician conjures a goetic spirit and perceives it as a hulking beast or a whispering tempter, what they are really encountering is an archetypal mask worn by their own unconscious. The grotesque forms described in grimoires are not literal zoology. They are dream figures, psychic dramatizations of inner forces. We know this is true for several reasons. First, no two magicians describe these entities in exactly the same way. Their visions are colored by their own culture, by their upbringing, and by their imagination. Second, when the work with the spirit is complete, the shift happens not in the outer world, but inside the magician themselves. The binding of a demon results in self-mastery. The temptation is brought under control. The destructive habit dissolves. The fear subsides. If the demons were entirely external, why would the results always be internal transformation? The fruits of the work reveal the truth. These spirits are aspects of the psyche, given names and forms so that we can interact with them directly. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Jung's shadow, and how that corresponds to the Goetia. Carl Jung, though not a ceremonial magician, intuited this same principle. He called it the shadow, the parts of ourselves we repress, deny, or exile. He warned that until the shadow is acknowledged, it will run our lives from the dark. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The Goetia is nothing less than a structured shadow book. Each spirit embodies a different disowned drive: lust, anger, pride, gluttony, greed, fear. The grimoire gives them names and sigils so that the magician can meet them face to face. It is psychology made mythic. Ritual gives us the tools to dramatize this inner confrontation so that what would otherwise sabotage us is so that what would otherwise sabotage us unconsciously can be named, seen, and reintegrated. So keep in mind that word, reintegrated. Integration, not exorcism. The common mistake is to treat demons as enemies to be destroyed. This is a misunderstanding. The real task is not exorcism, but integration. Anger, for example, can destroy your relationships when left unchecked. But when acknowledged with discipline, or when acknowledged and disciplined, it becomes righteous energy, the force that drives us to set boundaries and fight for what matters. Desire can enslave us when unconscious, but when harnessed, it fuels creativity and passion. Fear can paralyze, but it can also sharpen awareness and prepare us to act wisely. Every demon, once named and brought into awareness, can be transmuted into power. Alchemy has always described this process as solve et coagula, dissolve and recombine. Dissolve the rigid structures of repression, face the raw force that emerges, and then reintegrate it in a higher, more refined form. The angels help us rise. The demons help us descend. Both movements are necessary. Without descent, ascent becomes fragile, a form of spiritual bypassing. Without ascent, descent becomes just wallowing in chaos. Together, they form the complete circuit of the axis mundi. To become the axis mundi is to become the meeting point of heaven and hell, light and shadow, angel and demon. The magician who stands at the center is not one who has cast out their demons, but one who has integrated them. They are no longer ruled by hidden compulsions. They have faced the whispering voices of fear and lust and anger and transformed them into allies. This is why in the old grimoires, the magician is always depicted as standing in the circle, commanding both angels and demons. The circle is the psyche drawn whole. The angels are invoked to establish harmony. The demons are summoned to bring the shadow into the light. And the magician, standing at the center, embodies both. This is the great work, to become whole, to be fractured no longer between what we show and what we hide, between what we worship and what we fear. To stand unshaken in the center of the turning world, knowing that every force, light or dark, has its place within us. And then to close, the old traditions of alchemy and ceremonial magic were not childish fantasies about monsters and shining guardians. They were profound psychological technologies encoded in symbol and ritual. When we strip them of superstition and approach them as inner maps, we discover their real power. Every angel and every demon is a mirror. To call them forth is to call forth parts of ourself. To command them is to command our own hidden depths. The work is not about escaping demons or clinging to angels. It's about becoming the axis mundi, the still point where both are reconciled, integrated, and made whole. So I hope this helps you understand a little bit more why we perform not just the entire celestial lotus, but also, last time I talked about Poke Runyon's master mandala, where he lists both the angels and the demons on the master mandala. And I said that is a depiction of this ritual. Hopefully this clarifies a little bit more of that, as well as why we work with these forces after a certain stage in magic, not in the beginning. As usual, for closing up, I just want to say thank y'all. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for being part of my life. Thank you for doing this work. And thank you for accompanying me as I've done this work. I do not take that for granted, and I appreciate y'all very, very much. I'll talk to you in a couple days.